Do have a seat. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that had been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light. The true light was coming into the world, so that all might believe. He was not the light, but he came as a witness to the light. He was in the world, and though the world came into being through him, the world did not know him. He came to that was his own, but his own people did not receive him. Yet, to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to be called children of God. Children born not of natural descent, or human decision, or a husband's will, but of God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, full of grace and truth. The glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father. Now might be a good time to put your candle out. As the light is on, so you can see what I look like, in case you want to see what I look like. John's Gospel doesn't have a gentle introduction. If it was a play, the curtains would be opening and the scene unraveling. It would be breathtaking, all-encompassing and jaw-dropping. What's it about? The importance of Jesus. The importance of Jesus, his lordship, who he is, that he was there at the beginning. The Gospel puts Jesus at the very start of everything. It echoes the first book of the Bible. Genesis chapter 1 starts like this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. John's Gospel says to all who know their scriptures, in effect, you know how Genesis starts. Well, Jesus was there too. He was part of it. It says, verse 3, through him all things were made that had been made. There's an extra emphasis that's so important to John in his Gospel, he puts it there twice. Without him, nothing that was made that has been made. Through him, all things were made. Jesus is not just Lord over places of worship and church buildings and church halls and church pews, but over all. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. And so that's planets and stars and mountains and seas and fish and creatures and people. But it's not just the natural world that Jesus is Lord over. It's buildings and railways and aeroplanes and power stations and schools and hospitals and highways and prisons. Jesus Christ is Lord of all. Born in a stable that Bethlehem night, Jesus Christ is Lord over all. It's a very simple and yet utterly mind-blowing concept when you stop and think about it. Jesus Christ is Lord of all. Through him, all things were made. And I think the reason we can struggle with this is because sometimes we struggle to see the big picture. We can easily start putting our lives into neat little boxes. Some people here I know even have box files for this purpose, and they're probably color-coded. Others of us aspire to have colour-coded box files, but never quite manage. You know, a box labelled church and a box labelled family, and a box labelled the house, and a box for your projects, your do-it-yourself projects, a box for whatever hobby or interest that you have. The reminder that we get in John 1 is that Jesus Christ is Lord over all of these boxes. Jesus, who made the world, had come into the world, flesh among us. So he who is over all things had come to be in the midst of all things. And verse 10 says the world did not recognize him. A bit like if you heard a composition and the composer was conducting or playing in the performance. It's that sense of the far off being near. Now, with classical music, it would be quite unusual if the composer was there. Most of them are dead. But there are examples of some modern-day composers who conduct, who perhaps you know their music really well, but you wouldn't know what they looked like. For example, John Williams, who was the American composer of a number of film scores. You probably know much of his work: Superman, Jaws, Harry Potter, E.T., Star Wars. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yeah.
And yet, who could say what John Williams looks like? You probably wouldn't know if you went to see the music from the movies. The conductor there was actually John Williams. And so it was for many with Jesus that they heard but didn't realize who he was. Or perhaps they didn't believe and rejected him. The promise in verses 12 and 13 of that reading from John is that for those who accept him, they will be called and become children of God. How breathtaking is that? I say it quite glibly, I say it quite a lot. I think it's important for me to say that quite a lot, to make sure that people know just how much God loves them. But yet, when we stop and think, when we hear those words, when we let it sink in for a few seconds that we can be called children of God, it's enough to leave us speechless. That the one who made the world came into the world to be the light, and we are here today as people who know the light, who have believed in him, in what he said. We believe as Christians that Jesus is the Son of God. The thing I really want to say is that we have the right to be called children of God, which is a wonderful, wonderful privilege. For us, God is not some far-off being who is so removed like the Queen or the Prime Minister. If you met the Queen, you of course would have to call her Your Majesty or Your Royal Highness. You'd probably meet with somebody who knew about these things first to find out exactly what you had to say to the Queen to make sure you didn't look like an idiot. Or whatever your politics, if you met the Prime Minister, out of respect, you would, in good form, address him as Prime Minister, not simply, "Hello, Justin." Of course, there are times when it is appropriate to call God by a title. And there are many titles for God that are used in the Bible. But we can also call him Father, or in plain English, Daddy, Dad. That's the privilege we have, John says, as children of God. We can approach God as our Father. Jesus was there when the world was made. Back in the beginning, he came to earth that first Christmas. The light of the world had come into the world. And those who believe in him were given the right to be called children of God. And so we get to verse 14, which sums it all up. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of the Father's one and only Son. Or some versions say only begotten Son, the Son that came through the Father, came into existence from the Father. Full of grace and truth. Jesus, who made the world, had come into the world in flesh among us. In some church traditions, when that reading is read, in many churches people will stand for the gospel. And in some church traditions, when that reading is read, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. that are genuflect, get down on one knee. Because how can we stand when we hear and believe those words? He who is over all things had come to be in the midst of all things. Jesus Christ is Lord of all. Because of Jesus, we can call God Father. Jesus, who made the world, had come into the world in flesh among people like us. So we can rejoice. We can rejoice that we have the privilege of being called children of God. And that we can know Jesus, the light of the world, ourselves. So as we get closer, and I've got an app on my phone to tell me, I think it's about 8 days away now. As we get closer to another Christmas, I invite you to say a prayer in thankfulness. Thankfulness for God for taking that step, that leap from heaven to earth, to shine as a light in the world, as the light in the world, so that we may be brought close to God in just the way it was intended right back at the beginning, that we can call God our Father. That is the good news at Christmas. Amen.